Why Mr. Kushner continues to have access to classified information while these allegations are being investigated. And breaking just in the past hour from the pages of the New York Times is this. The White House is quietly lobbying House Republicans to weaken a bill overwhelmingly passed by the Senate last week that would slap tough new sanctions on Russia for its meddling in the 2016 election and allow Congress to block any future move by President Trump to lift any penalties against Moscow. A lot to talk about. Sometimes you have to lawyer up, and so we have two lawyers joining our conversation tonight. A 25-year veteran federal prosecutor, Joyce Vance, is back with us. She spent almost 8 years as a U.S. attorney, was among the first 5 U.S. attorneys appointed by President Obama. And Jeremy Bash rejoins us, former chief of staff at the CIA and Pentagon, former chief counsel to House Intel Committee. Welcome to you both. And Jeremy, let's get rid of the topic of Kushner's security clearance first. What authority would order or request it to be rescinded, and what's the normal standard? Would it be rescinded in a normal case if you were under investigation?
Not necessarily, and ultimately, Brian, this is the president's call. And fundamentally, with respect to this issue, as with respect to the issue of Mike Flynn having access to highly sensitive, highly classified information for 18 days after Sally Yates warned the White House counsel, who then warned the president, this is the president's call. He was the one who decided that all these people should have access to classified information. He was the one who invited the Russians into the Oval Office, gave them secrets. He's the one who is, in effect, giving Russia what they wanted, whether it's in terms of watered-down sanctions or not invoking Article 5 in NATO or effectively allowing Russia to have a no-fly zone in Syria. These are the president's decisions.
And Joyce, in the corporate world, they call it fiduciary responsibility, especially when you're on a board of directors. Considering the president's oath to preserve, protect, and defend, we're not asking where's the outrage over Russia, not even asking where's the urgency, but is there a responsibility on the part of the administration to show an effort to continue to investigate, to fight back, to retaliate?
So ultimately, I suppose that's a question that the voters will decide in elections in 2018 and 2020. But particularly in light of Secretary Johnson's testimony today, there is no doubt that this is the most urgent question facing us as a country. Our democracy is under attack. Republicans and Democrats have to come together to address the integrity of our elections. We'd all like to see the president showing leadership here.
And Jeremy, same question. In light of the preserve, protect, and defend, where's the effort from a political standpoint? I know you're not a political analyst, but it's kind of a free shot. It's kind of something all Americans could agree on, that we've been attacked by Russia and something should happen as a result.
You'd think. I mean, today was irrefutable evidence, again, as if any more were needed, that the Russians meddled in the election. If I were advising the White House, Brian, I'd say you guys should concede on this Russian meddling claim. The intelligence community has assessed it without any dissent. Unfortunately, the president believes that if he concedes on that, and people investigate that matter and that matter alone, they might turn over rocks. And underneath those rocks, they might find maybe collusion and ultimately this obstruction of justice concern. And so I think, although the White House should concede it, I don't think they're prepared to.
Joyce, we've seen Robert Mueller now on Capitol Hill, though we don't hear from him, for 2 straight days, I guess doing due diligence, keeping in touch with committee chairs. What is likely going on in these sessions? What is he likely sharing with them?
So it's very interesting. We don't hear Mueller speaking, but we hear a little bit of what's going on through the voices of people on the Hill. For instance, today, Congressman Trey Gowdy issued a statement saying that they were completely clearing the lanes and that he didn't want his committee talking with any of the witnesses Mueller was talking to, talking about any of the topics that Mueller was investigating. So the takeaway from that is that Bob Mueller is speaking with both House and Senate subcommittees, telling them or advising them about the scope of his investigation, and I suspect giving them good reason to not interfere in any way. It must be compelling information that he's taking to them to elicit this kind of response from people like Congressman Gowdy.
That's a great point. And Jeremy, does Mueller investigate, or is he fueled by what we now have in testimony? The president not expressing any curiosity or anger to the former FBI director, the president not expressing any curiosity or anger to his sitting attorney general over the fact that this country was attacked in our election process by Russia.
Yeah, he appears to have no concern at all. I just want to take slight issue with what Janice just referenced, which is I do share some concern with some congressional overseers that if Congress is overly deferential to the Department of Justice investigation and doesn't pursue any witnesses, then that could stall the congressional investigation. And the congressional investigation is important for two reasons. One is it's the only one that will be conducted in public, and that's an important public service. And second, it's the only one where we can learn lessons and actually prepare to defend ourselves for the next election. Bob Mueller's writ does not extend to that.
And Joyce, you get the last word. Are all of the investigations equal in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the Justice Department, in the eyes of Mr. Mueller?
So I think Jeff makes a good point, which is that it's important to have an open congressional investigation so that people understand that what Secretary Johnson called for today, some level of national coordination, whether it's a cyber czar or a cyber bureau that works together to protect our elections' integrity, that's important. But equally important will be Bob Mueller's investigation. We don't want Congress to interfere with witnesses, to give people immunity while Mueller is still in the early steps of his investigation. It's a good sign that he's up on the Hill and that everyone appears to be working together at this point.
Our thanks to our two highly capable lawyers, Jeremy Bash, Joyce Vance. Thank you.